Indie games have become straight up better than modern AAA titles. In this video, we're going to take a look at how big companies went from creating revolutionary titles to absolute garbage. The gaming space has been dominated by big corporations for a very long time. Over time, these big companies have lost their charm and started making empty and soulless games. For example, Ubisoft made revolutionary games like Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell, but now all we have is garbage like Just Dance 2023 and Mario plus Rabbids. In a sea of unoriginal open world games, we have indie games. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what indie games are games made by independent developers, a single person, or a small team of 2 to 10 people. Indie games are often better because the developers behind it usually have more in mind than trying to make the most money. Today we'll be taking a look at some indie games that have far surpassed most modern AAA titles by just being straight up better. One of my favorite indie games is made by one guy alone. This game is Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is an indie love letter to the classic farming games Harvest Moon. Stardew Valley is made by just one person. Yes, only one. This person is Eric Barone, aka Concerned Ape. Stardew Valley started development in 2012 and looked like this. Fun fact, the game actually used to be called Sprout Valley instead of the much more fitting name that we have today. Players take the role of a character who inherits their deceased grandfather's dilapidated farm in a place known as Stardew Valley. The game was released for Windows in February 2016 before being ported to other platforms shortly after. Stardew Valley is pretty much infinite, allowing players to fish, farm, and mine to earn money. Stardew Valley was a commercial success, selling over 20 million copies by 2022. Stardew Valley received quote-unquote generally favorable reviews and has been cited by several publications to be amongst the greatest video games of all time. And for Stardew Valley's awards, it was nominated for multiple things at the Golden Joystick Awards, those being Best Indie Game, PC Game of the Year, and Breakthrough Award. The last one being the only award it won. It was nominated at many other award shows, such as being nominated for Best Indie Game of 2016 at the Game Awards. Stardew Valley received a lot of praise from game journalists and critics from all over the world. A game that failed to receive the same amount of recognition is Celeste. Now, Celeste sold a lot of copies. Not as much as Stardew Valley, but it still sold a lot. Celeste is a 2018 platforming game developed and published by an indie studio, Matt Makes Games. The player controls Madeline, a young woman with anxiety and depression who aims to climb Celeste Mountain. During her climb, she encounters several characters, including kind of an alter ego of herself known as Madeline, who attempts to stop her from climbing the mountain. Development of Celeste began in August 2015, when game developers Maddie Thorson and Noel Berry participated in a game jam, where they created Celeste for the Pico 8. Celeste was designed to be accessible, featuring game mechanics intended to make the game more forgiving in addition to an assist mode, offering several options to make the game less challenging. Since its release, Celeste has garnered a dedicated fandom and an active speedrunning community. A free DLC came out named Farewell, introducing a new chapter into the game. The dev team has stated that they do not intend to create a sequel for the main game. However, a sequel to Celeste for Pico 8, titled Celeste 2 Lanny's Trek, was released in January of 2021. Although Celeste was forgiving, it still required you to try. It was a challenging game overall, but not nearly as challenging as the next game I want to talk about, Cuphead. Don't deal with the devil. Cuphead was developed by indie studio MDHR. The game follows the titular Cuphead, who in a deal with the devil after losing a game at the Devil's Casino, is sent on a quest to repossess the souls of runaway debtors as payment for Cuphead's loss. In the game, up to 2 players control Cuphead and or his brother Mugman to fight through several levels and boss fights. The game does not have a rigid narrative structure. As the game progresses, the protagonist acquires more power and abilities, eventually threatening the devil himself. Players, however, can only equip a limited number of these abilities at a given time. The game's creators, brothers Chad and Jared Moldenhauer, took inspiration from the rubber hose style of the golden age of American animation and the surrealist qualities of works of Walt Disney Animation Studios and Warner Brother Cartoons. Reminiscent of the 30s aesthetic and jazz age, the game is noted for its animation and soundtrack. All in-game assets used hand-drawn animation with deliberate human imperfections. The soundtrack was written and recorded with a full jazz ensemble. Cuphead is hard, but not as hard as one of the best indie games of all time, Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a 2017 Metroidvania-style video game developed and published by indie developer Team Cherry. In the game, the player controls the Knight, a nameless insectoid warrior who explores the Hollow Nest, a fallen kingdom plagued by a supernatural disease, known as the Infection. The game is set in diverse subterranean locations, and it features friendly and hostile insectoid characters, and numerous very difficult boss fights. The concept behind Hollow Knight was originally conceived in 2013 in the Ludum Dare Game Jam. Team Cherry wanted to create a game inspired by older platformers that replicated the explorational aspects of its influences. Inspirations for the game include Metroid, Zelda 2, and Mega Man X. Development was partially funded through a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign that raised over $57,000 by the end of 2014. By December 2020, the game had sold 3 million copies. A sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, is currently in development. And personally, I cannot wait any longer for Hollow Knight Silksong. All of these games far surpass the garbage of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I think that's because these games are made by gamers and for gamers. Not some big French businessmen whose name I can't even begin to pronounce. Obviously, I know doesn't make the games, but he has control over them. The reason that indie games are in most cases better is because indie devs aren't scared of trying something new. Ubisoft used to do that. That's how they made all the legendary franchises that they're milking to death now. But since Ubisoft is scared of losing their precious money, they are scared of creativity. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more like it, make sure to click the big red subscribe button, and also click that little bell icon to get notified whenever I upload. Comment down below if you think there's any indie games that I totally missed. I know there's plenty, but I can't go over them all. And with that being said, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and I'm out.